But this is, just as I said earlier, and as you said on January 11th of 2012, a rearticulation on this side of the aisle of the Senate rules as we see appropriate.
The Senator from James City County, Senator Norment.
Mr. President, if the junior senator from Henrico would be kind enough to yield for a question or two pertaining to Rule 19I on lines 363 through 368 on page 14.
I yield, Mr. President.
Would the junior senator yield for additional questions?
I yield.
He yields. The Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, my question is, am I correct in understanding this rule that if the Senate of Virginia passes a bill and it is sent down to the House of Delegates and they amend that bill and then send it back to the Senate of Virginia, that it will not directly come to the floor of the Senate but will go to the chairman of the Rules Committee?
The junior senator from Henrico.
I would answer the senator by saying that is not what that rule says.
Then, Mr. President, if,
yes.
If the gentleman would be so kind to share with me how that proposed Rule 19I will mechanically work.
The junior senator from Henrico.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I would answer the senator by saying that he should focus on the word that begins the line of 365, substantially amended. We're not talking about just an amendment of just a minor or even a moderately substantive nature. What we're talking about is a substantial amendment. A substantial amendment would be defined as one that brings up policy issues not raised in the original bill and not contemplated by the Senate when the bill left the chamber.
Senator from James City County.
Mr. Chairman, if he would yield for another question.
Would the senator yield for an additional question?
I yield, Mr. President.
He yields.
Mr. Chairman, following his suggestion and focusing on the word substantially on line 365, is substantially, the understanding of substantially and the definition of it, just as you made reference a moment ago, in the eye of the beholder?
The junior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin.
Mr. President, I believe that policy is a rather objective standard, and I believe further, Mr. President, that all 40 of us would agree when a policy matter has been raised that has not been raised previously, and that is what substantial refers to in this instance.
The senator from James City
Mr.
County.
President, I'll try to ask the question a more direct way.
Does the senator yield for an additional question?
I'll yield, Mr. President.
Senator yields.
Mr. President, my question is, who is going to determine the applicable definition of substantial on a bill that comes back from the House of Delegates?
The junior senator from Henrico.
Mr. President, I believe the rule speaks for itself, and that power is vested in the chairman of the Committee on Rules.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, follow-up question. So just so I'm abundantly clear on this, we are empowering a chairman of one committee to make a decision on behalf of the body of 40 to determine whether or not an amendment is substantial, and thereby have the discretion of either reporting the bill or passing it by indefinitely?
The junior senator from Henrico.
I apologize to the senator. I think my answer to that question is no, but would he repeat his question, please?
Senator from James City County.
Mr. President, let me see if I can break this down a little bit. As I understand, am I correct that the first part of Rule 19I is that the chairman and no one else of the Rules Committee may direct the clerk to refer the Committee on Rules any Senate legislation which has been substantially amended by the House of Delegates?
The junior senator from Henrico.
The phrase that Mr. President, the phrase that the senator just read empowers the chairman of rules to direct direct the clerk to send to the Committee on Rules any bill that has been substantially altered by the House upon its return to this chamber.
The senator from James City County.
Mr. President, then my follow-up question is that these rules are empowering the chairman of the Rules Committee to direct the clerk to bypass this body and send that bill to him or her and potentially the Rules Committee.
The junior senator from Henrico.
Mr. President, members of the Senate, I would say that not potentially to the Rules Committee. I think the rule pretty well sets out that the Rules Committee will receive the bill and take action accordingly.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, in following up on that, in fact, the chairman of the Rules Committee is going to be making the determination as to what the word substantial means. Is that correct?
The junior senator from Henrico.
Mr. President, my affection for the senator from James City County knows no bounds, but I have to at this juncture remind him of the words he said to me on January 11th of 2012. I think, Mr. President, in fact, I put on my very inadequate hat as a trial lawyer. I would have to say that I think we are beginning to get into an area that I would refer to as discovery. Mr. President, and consequently my comments are going to be more abbreviated because if, in fact, there was anyone other than myself in this body, other than myself who was old enough to remember Johnny Carson and the Great Karnak, I would say that somebody is probably going to get a CD of this and try to buttress perhaps a position that they may have. So I would say to you, I'm aware of what the Constitution says, I'm aware of what these rules say, and I just respectfully have a different understanding than the interpretation that you're trying to bootstrap through your very decisive and incisive questioning. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, after that recitation of that eloquent remarks that were made a number of years ago, do I understand that the senator is declining to answer any further questions?
Would the junior senator from Henrico yield for additional questions?
Mr. President, I'm happy to ask questions about the rules. What I'm not going to do is engage in a debate with the very knowledgeable senator from James City County, at least at this juncture. If he wants to ask a question about what the rules say, I'm happy to entertain that, but I don't see the point in going back and forth in the fashion that we've just done.
Senator from James City County.
Mr. President, I appreciate what has been said, and I'm not trying to engage in a running debate. I tried to ask an all-encompassing question as to Rule 19I, and that did not work, so I was trying to break it down incrementally, and if that was misinterpreted as being a running debate, then I extend my apology to the body. Mr. President, if he would be kind, if the junior senator from Henrico would be kind enough to yield for a question pertaining to Rule 20A, which starts at the bottom of page 14 and goes over to page 15.
Would the junior senator yield for additional questions?
I yield for now, Mr. President.
Mr. President, my question to the gentleman would be could he share with me the explanation for deleting 2/3 of the body to remove a senator from a committee and reducing that down to a simple majority of those voting?
The junior senator from Henrico.
Mr. President, I would say to the senator that I would remind him of my answer to his question on page 8 at line 198. This merely harmonizes those two provisions. And again, this is a reallocation on this side of the aisle of the Senate rules as we see appropriate.
The senator from James City County, Senator Norman.
Mr. President, I apologize for jumping around. Normally I'm pretty good at staying in sequence, but trying to do this spontaneously maybe has got me not on my A game. But if I could go back to page 14 in Rule 19I, I think I had another question that frankly slipped my mind.
Would the junior senator from Henrico yield for an additional question?
With some reluctance, Mr. President.
Senator from James City County.
Mr. President, I would say to the senator that I am confident he respects that we are a bicameral legislature. My question is, has there been any conferring with any members of either party of the House of Delegates as to how this new protocol would apply to Senate bills that they're amending and sending back?
The junior senator from Henrico, Senator McEachin.
Mr. President, I would say to you that I am shocked and amazed to have heard the reference to the other chamber actually articulated on this floor, and I'm certain that the senator from James City County would not have wished me to engage in bicameral discussions on this matter, as we are one body and they are another body, and I've been taught so often that we're not concerned with what they do down at the other end of the hall by the senator from James City County.
Senator from James City County, Senator Norment.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, I'm unusually disciplined today, and I'm not going to nibble at that word contempt, although I am sorely tempted. Having said that, Mr. President, and I'm respectful of the senator's response on this, but I would ask, in his tenure in the Senate and based upon the apparent exhaustive research that he did about the rules, can he recall where we have ever amended the Senate rules that would in some way disenfranchise the House and interrupt the orderly process by not allowing their amendments to the bill to come to the floor?
The junior senator from Henrico.
Mr. President, we have not done that in this case.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
I did not hear his response. I apologize.
Mr. President, I simply disagreed with his characterization and said that we have not done that in this case.
The senator from James City County.
With all due respect, I'll accept that as a non-response. Mr. President, in parliamentary inquiry of you, and I'm breaking it a little bit just because we happen to be on that Rule 19I.
Yes, sir.
Mr. President, before I ask the question, have you had an opportunity to read that rule?
Just, Senator, if you want to ask your question, that's
Well,
fine.
I'm going to ask the question. If you haven't read it, then you would not understand my question. And I'm really trying to be polite and not argumentative. My question is this. If, in fact, that rule was in Rule 19I was in effect, would that not take away the discretion of the President of the Senate to rule that that was a non-germane amendment made to a Senate bill?
The Senate will stand at ease.